And I ask Allah Ta'ala to make this easy for us and to relieve our brothers and sisters in Palestine and elsewhere. I ask Allah Ta'ala to send the rescue for them and for us. Ameen. قال المصنف رحمه الله, says the author, may Allah have mercy upon him. So now we're still talking about funeral prayer. We are just wrapping up what's left. So let's see what Allah makes easy for us tonight. وَيُكَبَّرُ عَلَيْهِ أَرْبَعَ تَكْبِيرَاتٍ. And 4 takbirs are said for him, for the dead one, by the one who's performing the funeral prayer. So we talked about washing and shrouding, and now we're talking about prayer, and then we're still going to have to talk about burial. That's the order that you have to perform: washing, shrouding, prayer, and burial. So we washed him and we shrouded him. So then 4 takbirs are said over him. يقرأ الفاتحة بعد الأولى. The praying person recites Al-Fatiha after the first. ويصلي على النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بعد الثانية. And he makes salah on the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم after the second. ويدعو للميت بعد الثالثة. And he supplicates for the dead after the third. ويسلم بعد الرابعة. And then he says the salam after the fourth. الشرح, the explanation. قد علمت أن الصلاة على الميت فرض كفاية. You have come to know that prayer over the dead is a communal obligation. فيشترط في من يصلى عليه ثلاثة أمور. And so the one who's being prayed for has to fulfill 3 conditions. أن يكون ميتا مسلما غير شهيد. That he would be dead in the first place, and that he'd be a Muslim, and that he would not be a martyr. كما مر, as previously mentioned. إذا عرفت هذا, so if you know that, then فاعلم أن للصلاة على الميت 7 أركان. Then know that prayer for the dead has 7 integrals. So remember that number. Prayer for the dead has 7 integrals. So if you are asked, how many takbirs for the dead? You're going to say 4. If you are asked, how many integrals for the funeral prayer? You're going to say 7. Al-awwal niyya, the first is the intention. ثم إن كان الميت واحدا نوى الصلاة عليه. Now, if it were a single dead person, then it's enough to intend to pray for him. That means him or her. وإن حضر موتى. But if there were multiple dead ones, نوى الصلاة عليهم, then he makes the intention to pray for all of them, like what's going to be done for our brothers and sisters in places where they have been killed. May Allah have mercy on them and raise their ranks. And may Allah Ta'ala make the schemes of the kuffar backfire on them. Ameen. وَلَا يُشْتَرَطُ تَعْيِينُ الْمَيِّتِ. And it's not a condition to intend the dead person in particular when you are to intend the exact identity of that dead person is not a condition. It's not a condition to identify the dead person in your intention. بل لو الصلاة على من صلى عليه الإمام كفى. Rather, had he intended to pray for whomever the Imam prays for, that's sufficient. Or if you were praying alone and he made the intention to pray for this dead one, that's enough. He doesn't have to know who he is and identify him in his intention. وَتَجِبُ عِنْدَئِذٍ نِيَّةُ الْإِقْتِدَاءِ. And it would be obligatory in such a case to intend to follow the Imam. الفرض الثاني القيام عند القدرة. The second obligation, the second integral out of the 7, is standing when able. because this is an obligatory prayer, although it's only a communal obligation. Standing is an integral for an obligatory prayer, as inshallah he remembered that. So in some of the books of fiqh, they say to stand for the obligation is the integral. When they count the integrals, they say to stand for the obligation. And sometimes they say standing. So the most accurate one is to stand for the obligation, because then there's a signal to that standing is not an integral for an optional or voluntary prayer. الركن الثالث التكبيرات. The third integral is the takbirs. وهي أربع. And there are 4 of them. So notice here, these takbirs were all counted. How many takbirs are those? 4. They were all counted as one integral. It says here the third integral are the 4 takbirs. What's similar to that? What's similar to that is when we say the 9th integral is prostrating twice. And then, to remind you, how did the Shafi'is differ about counting the integrals of the obligatory prayer? Some said 13, some said 14, some said 17. All of that depends on how you count the serenity between the moves, the tumatnina. If you count it as a part of the act itself and you don't give it its own number, then you're going to have 13 integrals for the prayer. But if you count the 4 instances of tumatnina as one integral, you just count it once, and you make note that its spot is in 4 different places, then you're going to say there's 14 integrals. So that's going to be like these. And if you count each one by one, then you're going to have 17 integrals. فلو كبر 5 لم تبطل صلاته لثبوت ذلك في صحيح مسلم. If one made 5 takbirs in his funeral prayer, it will not invalidate his prayer, because this is confirmed in Sahih Muslim and because it's a dhikr. And remember, dhikr does not invalidate the prayer as a rule. Dhikr and dua do not invalidate the prayer, as long as that's not also talking to someone. What's talking to someone? Like saying, Allahu yahdik, may Allah guide you. That's a dua. But you're talking to someone, then no, this will invalidate your prayer. Under the details of what that means to be an invalidator. But other than that, dua and dhikr do not invalidate prayer. Even if you inserted a dhikr in between your Fatiha, it's not going to invalidate your prayer. It's only going to invalidate your Fatiha. And then you'll have to start over again, because dhikr does not invalidate the prayer. So that's why if a person did a 5th takbir, it's not going to invalidate his prayer, because it's a dhikr, and it was even reported. Al-Rukn al-Rabi' as-Salam. The 4th integral is the Salam. Al-Rukn al-Khamis qira'atu al-Fatihati ba'da al-Ula. The 5th integral is reciting al-Fatiha after the 1st takbir. Al-Rukn al-Sadis. The 6th integral is as-Salatu ala nabi. I don't know why the integral of the Salam was forwarded like that. But I always did feel that this book needs some tightening, this Lubbul Kifaya. I was never unconvinced about that, but out of respect for the source and the author, then I hold my tongue a lot for this. But there's some spots that I think they could use some slight rearrangement. Al-Ruknu Sadis, the 6th integral is As-Salatu ala Nabi, making salah on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam ba'da thaniya, after the second takbir. لِوُرُودِهِ فِي الْحَدِيثِ الصَّحِيحِ, because that came in the authentic hadith. وَأَفْضَلُ الصَّلَاةِ عَلَيْهِ sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the best salat formula on the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam for this activity is Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. وَالصَّحِيحُ أَنَّ الصَّلَاةَ عَلَى الْآلِ لَا تَجِبْ. And what's correct is that making salah on the al, the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is not obligatory. Ar-Ruknu Sabir, the seventh integral, is ad-du'a'u lil-mayyit, supplication for the dead. And anyway, what I'm reading from is old copy. This now is actually have a date right here on the page. 12/15/2008. So that's more than 10 years. 2018, that's 10 years right there. 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Wow, I didn't know I had this for so long. So probably it's been updated since then. Ar-Ruknu Sabir, the seventh integral, is ad-du'a lil-mayyit, supplication for the dead. بعد التكبيرة الثالثة, after the third takbir in particular. So, as-salat on the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam after the second takbir in particular, and making dua for the dead after the third takbir in particular. وَالْوَاجِبُ مَا يُطْلَقُ عَلَيْهِ اسْمُ الدُّعَاء. And the obligation is something called dua, supplication. وَأَقَلُّ الدُّعَاءِ لِلْمَيِّتِ, and the minimum supplication for the dead is Allahumma اغْفِرْ لَهُ. Oh Allah, forgive him. But you need to say it in Arabic. Allahumma اغْفِرْ لَهُ. And what's similar to that, such as Allahumma arham. So you could say Allahumma ighfir lah, oh Allah, forgive him. Or you could say Allahumma arham, oh Allah, have mercy on him. Or you could say Allahumma arham hadha al-mayyit, Allah, oh Allah, have mercy on this dead one. If it's female, Allahumma ighfir laha, oh Allah, forgive her. Or Allahumma arhamha, oh Allah, have mercy on her. So that's the minimum. وأكمله مذكور في قول المصنف في بعض نسخ المتن. And the complete supplication for the dead is mentioned by the author according to some copies of the source manual of Abu Shuja itself. Like the copy that I'm sharing my screen with you has this big paragraph here, all of this dua. Like we mentioned before, all of this dua is not mentioned in some copies of Abu Shuja, like the copy that I'm reading, which is the copy of Al-Hisni, if you remember. So what I'm reading to you is an explanation of Abu Shuja. This explanation is taken from a classic work called Kifayatul Akhyar by a Syrian scholar named Al-Hisni, with a ha, the hard H, and a sad, kasra on the ha. Al-Hisni, he's a refuter of Ibn Taymiyyah also. So that book is loaded with information. So we have a summary of that book. That's what we're reading, Lubul Kifaya. And so the text of Abu Shuja being explained by the explanation that I'm reading to you is Al-Hisni's copy. And so his copy is one of those copies, or it is the copy, I don't know how many there are, that doesn't have this big dua in it, in the source text. And some explainers of Abu Shuja said, as you know, that such a dua is not compatible it's not appropriate for the ultimate summary that the text is supposed to be. This text is supposed to be ghayatul ikhtisar, the ultimate summary. قال Auf ibn Malik said, صلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم على جنازة or janazah. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam prayed a funeral prayer. فَسَمِعْتُهُ يَقُولُ, and I heard him saying. So now I'm going to read dua for you. It's not exactly what's here that I'm sharing with you. First, let me see what's on my own page. So he heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying, Allahumma aghfir lahu warhamhu. Oh Allah, forgive him and have mercy on him. Wa'afihi wa'afu anhu, and pardon him. Wa'afihi, yani, and protect him and pardon him. وأكرم نزله ووسع مدخله, and yani, give him a good place to settle, which is his grave. Make his settling place a good one. Loose translation. And expand his entrance, where he entered into. وَغْسِلْهُ بِمَاءِ الثَّلْجِ وَالْبَرَدِ, and wash him, meaning from his sins, clear him from his sins with the water of the snow and the hail. وَنَقِّهِ مِنَ الْخَطَايَا كَمَا يُنَقَّى الثَّوْبُ الْأَبْيَضُ مِنَ الدَّنَسِ, and clean him from the sins, just as a white cloth is clean from dirt. وَأَبْدِلْهُ دَارًا خَيْرًا مِنْ دَارِهِ, and give him an abode better than his abode. Give him a better abode than the one he had. وَأَهْلًا خَيْرًا مِنْ أَهْلِهِ, and give him a family better than the one he had. وَزَوْجًا خَيْرًا مِنْ زَوْجِهِ, and a wife better than the one he had. Yani, doesn't have to mean a different one. Could be the one he had, and Allah makes her better for him in the afterlife, which would be the case. Allah gives us new bodies in the afterlife, so we would be, yani, males and females, better for our spouses, because Allah gives us new bodies, so we will all be so happy with each other. وَقِهِ فِتْنَةَ الْقَبْرِ وَعَذَابَ النَّارِ, and save him from the tribulation of the grave and the torture of the fire. قال Auf said, فَتَمَنَّيْتُ أَنْ أَكُونَ أَنَا الْمَيِّتُ. When I heard the Prophet making this supplication, I wish that I was the dead one, getting this dua of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. وَيَقُولُ فِي الطِّفْلِ, and one says for the dead baby or child, the prepubescent child, Allahumma ja'alhu faratan li'abawayh. Oh Allah, make him a farat for his parents. I don't know the meaning of farat. وَسَلَفًا, and a salaf. I'm not sure how to explain that. وَذُخْرًا, and make him something stored away for them that they're going to get later. وَعِظًا, and وَعِظَةً وَاعْتِبَارًا, and make him a lesson for them and a reminder. وَشَفِيعًا, and an intercessor. وَثَقِّلْ بِهِ مَوَازِينَهُمَا, and make their scales of good deeds heavier by this child that has passed away. وَأَفْرِغِ الصَّبْرَ الْجَمِيلَ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمَا, and pour beautiful patience is a better way I could translate that. Yani, gracious Pour the gracious patience. Yani patience that is conducted in a good way. Pour that into their hearts. وَيُسَنُّ مَعَهُ, and it's also recommended to add وَلَا تَفْتِنْهُمَا بَعْدَهُ وَلَا تَحْرِمْهُمَا أَجْرَهُ, and do not test them after this dead child of theirs, and do not deprive them of the reward of this one. قال النووي, النووي said, ويقول بعد الرابعة, and one says after the fourth salam, اللهم لا تحرمنا أجره, O Allah, do not deprive us of his reward. ولا تفتنا بعده, and do not test us after him. Yani, don't deprive us of his reward means don't deprive us the reward for praying over this dead one. Or it means don't deprive us the reward of being patient with the calamity of losing this one. And وَلَا تَفْتِنَّا بَعْدَهُ, don't try us, don't test us after him. That means don't test us with the sins. نص عليه الشافعي. الشافعي documented this. وصح أنه عليه الصلاة والسلام كان يدعو به. And it is authenticated that the messenger sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam used to pray with this supplication. ويسن أن يزيد, and it's recommended to add واغفر لنا وله, and forgive him and us. ويسلم المصلي بعد التكبيرة الرابعة, and the praying person says the salam after the fourth takbir. والسلام هنا كالسلام في صلاة غير الجنازة, and the salam here is like the salam in another prayer other than funeral prayer. في كيفيته وعدده, in its technique and its number. ولكن يستحب هنا, but here it is recommended زيادة, to add ورحمة الله وبركاته والله أعلم, and Allah knows best. And what about here, this dua that's in the screen here? اللهم هذا عبدك وابن عبديك. Oh Allah, this is your slave and the son of your two slaves. خرج من روح الدنيا وسعتها, he has left the comfort of the dunya and its accommodation. ومحبوبه وأحباؤه فيها, and his beloveds are still in it, in the dunya. He left them behind to go to his grave. إلى ظلمة القبر وما هو لاقيه, to the darkness of the grave and what he shall encounter there. كان يشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك. He used to testify that no one is God but you, alone, without a partner. وأن محمدا عبدك ورسولك, and that Muhammad is your slave and your messenger. He used to testify to that. وَأَنْتَ أَعْلَمُ بِهِ مِنَّا, and you know better about him than we do. This is what he used to display. And you know about his reality better than we do, O Allah. اللهم إنه نزل بك وأنت خير منزول به. O Allah, indeed, he been has been transported to death. To Yani, I don't know what might be the best words here. Innahu nazala bik. It's like very literally saying he has come down to you, O Allah. Nazala bik. But means he has died now, O Allah, and now he shall experience whatever he's going to experience in the barzakh, the life of the grave. وَأَنْتَ خَيْرُ مَنْزُولٍ بِهِ. I'm not sure the best way to explain that. وَأَصْبَحَ فَقِيرًا إِلَى رَحْمَتِكَ. And he became needy of your mercy. وَأَنْتَ غَنِيٌّ عَنْ عَذَابِهِ. And you are, you fear no repercussion of being punished by him. وَقَدْ جِئْنَاكَ رَاغِبِينَ إِلَيْكَ شُفَعَاءَ لَهُ. O Allah, we have come in worship to you, hopeful that you will answer us, and we have come as intercessors for him. Allahumma in kana muhsinan fazid fi ihsani. Oh Allah, if he was a good doer, then increase him in his goodness. Wa in kana musi'an fatajawaz an. And if he were an evildoer, then excuse him. وَلَقِّهِ بِرَحْمَتِكَ رِضَاكَ. And by your mercy, make him encounter your acceptance. وَقِهِ فِتْنَةَ الْقَبْرِ وَعَذَابَهِ. And spare him from the tribulation of the grave and its punishment. وَافْسَحْ لَهُ فِي قَبْرِهِ. And expand his grave for him. وَجَافِ الْأَرْضَ عَنْ جَنْبَيْهِ. And make the earth move away from his sides. وَلَقِّهِ بِرَحْمَتِكَ الْأَمْنَ مِنْ عَذَابِكَ حَتَّى تَبْعَثَهُ آمِنًا. And make him encounter by your mercy the safety from your punishment. حتى تبعثه آمنا إلى جنتك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Until you admit him safely into your garden by your mercy, O most merciful of those who are merciful. There we have, if you have a copy of this, all of that's transliterated for you. And we already said here, one says after the fourth takbir, Allahumma la tahrimna ajrahu wa la taftinna ba'dahu waghfir lana wa la. O Allah, do not deprive us of his reward, and do not try us after his death, and forgive us and him. Fara, branch, وَيُصَلَّى عَلَى الْغَائِبِ عَنِ الْبَلَدِ. Anyone, someone who is absent from the town, someone who died out of town, not in the town you're in. I don't mean he's from your town when I say out of town. He's not in the town you're in, and he died. He can be prayed for. لأنه عليه الصلاة والسلام صلى على النجاشي. Because the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام prayed for the king of Ethiopia, or Abyssinia. وَهُوَ بِالْمَدِينَةِ. He did so, the Prophet ﷺ did so while in Medina, though the Abyssinian king was in Abyssinia. Rawahu Shaykhan, the two sheikhs reported that وَلَوْ صَلَّى عَلَى مَنْ مَاتَ فِي يَوْمِهِ وَغُسِلَ صَحْ. وَلَوْ صَلَّى عَلَى مَنْ دُفِنَ صَحَّتْ صَلَاتُهُ. If he prayed for someone who died on that day and was washed, then it's valid. If one prayed for someone who died on that day and was washed, then it's valid. And if he prayed for him after he was buried, it's valid. لأنه عليه الصلاة والسلام صلى على قبر بعدما دفن. Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam prayed for someone who was already buried. So the original order is, what did we say? Wash, shroud, prayer, burial. But if the burial came before the prayer, still valid. The prayer is valid. Rawahu Shaykhan, that's narrated by the two sheikhs. Zad ad-Daraqutni, and ad-Daraqutni has an addition in his rendition, Ba'da Shahr. A month later, the Prophet prayed on him a month later. Wallahu alam, and Allah knows best. And so you can still see here in this copy that I'm sharing with you has some extra statements that's not here in the copy that I'm reading to you. It says here, وَيُسَلِّمُ بَعْدَ الرَّابِعَةِ, he makes salam after the fourth. Did we say that though? Yes, we did say it. It's in the explanation. وَيُسَلِّمُ الْمُصَلِّي بَعْدَ التَّكْبِيرَةِ الرَّابِعَةِ, the praying person makes the salam after the fourth takbir. And then that's when we said, the salam here is like the salam in other prayers. So that's in the explanation. In this copy that I'm sharing with you on the screen, he mentions in the text itself making the salam after the fourth. And then it says, وَيُدْفَنُ, now wants to talk about burial. We'll stop here. We'll read about burial next week if Allah enables us. I ask Allah to enable us. Ameen.